All right, so are you ready to dive deep into some great business ideas from the book 100 Great Business Ideas? We're going to unearth some real gems today, stuff you can use no matter what kind of business you're in.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
Cool, cool. So we're talking about everything from building rock-solid customer loyalty to figuring out how those little things can spark massive changes. And I got to say, I'm really curious about this rule of 150 thing. What's that all about?
Well, it's pretty interesting how, something from anthropology can actually impact business. The rule of 150 basically says that our brains can only handle about 150 stable relationships at a time.
Okay.
And get this, companies like W.L. Gore and Associates, they're the ones who make Gore-Tex. They actually use this rule. They keep their offices to like 150 people max.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, they found that smaller teams mean better communication. It's like a more agile, entrepreneurial kind of vibe.
It's almost like they're using human nature to make their company culture better. Pretty smart, huh?
Yeah, it's a clever strategy.
So speaking of building, how do you build customer loyalty so strong that it's almost like a cult following?
Well, Harley-Davidson's comeback in the 80s is a perfect example. They were facing some serious competition from Japanese motorcycles, right? But they didn't just focus on selling bikes. They sold a whole lifestyle, freedom community, all that.
Right.
Their events and rallies were huge. They gave customers a chance to connect with the brand and with each other.
And then there's the Harley Owners Group, HOG, right? Like 2/3 of those members renew every year. That's insane. It's more than just a club. It's like an extension of the brand itself.
Exactly. It shows that when you understand your customers' deeper needs and wants and you give them benefits that really hit home emotionally, that's when you create real loyalty.
Okay, so we got customer loyalty down pat. But how do you navigate a world that's constantly changing? How do you prepare for the unpredictable?
That's where scenario planning comes in. It's not about actually predicting the future, but more like rehearsing for it. You got to play out different what-if scenarios so you can spot potential problems and opportunities before they hit you.
So like a business fire drill.
Kind of. A good example is Royal Dutch Shell back in the 60s. They used scenario planning to figure out what the oil market might look like down the road.
Makes sense.
One scenario they looked at was whether oil-producing nations would always want to pump out more and more oil.
Well, yeah, more oil, more money. Right. Seems logical.
Right, you'd think so, but Shell realized that some countries might actually want to hold back and conserve their reserves, control the supply.
Huh.
That kind of forward thinking helped them adapt when the power dynamics in the industry started to shift.
It's like a strategic chess game almost, like you're trying to think a few steps ahead of your opponent.
Yeah, exactly. Scenario planning keeps you flexible and ready to adapt no matter what curveballs the future throws at you.
Speaking of agility, being able to change direction quickly is super important, especially when you're just started out. Like, remember the story of Pret a Manger? They built a whole sandwich empire, but they started out doing something completely different.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic example of how real-world market testing can make or break you. Pret actually started as an off-license, basically a liquor store in London.
Really?
Yeah, but they talked to their customers directly and realized that people were craving fresh, affordable foods, so they pivoted, and sandwiches became their golden ticket.
So basically, they listened to their customers and ended up tapping into a market they hadn't even considered at first.
Exactly. Sometimes the best insights come straight from the horse's mouth, You got to be out there talking to your target audience.
All right, so we've talked about external stuff like customers and market trends, but what about the people inside your company? How do you make your employees feel truly proud to be part of the team?
Well, employee pride is huge. It can really boost productivity, work quality, and even attract better talent. Take Taylor Milkson Surface, for example, TNS. They're a global market research firm, and they're really good at this whole pride thing.
How so?
Well, they always emphasize how their work benefits society, so employees feel like they're making a difference.
So it's about creating a strong employer brand. People want to work for a company that has a purpose, something meaningful.
Absolutely. It's about making sure individual values align with the company's values.
Now let's talk about data. In this day and age, data is king. And companies like Amazon, they're like the masters of using data to their advantage.
Oh, yeah. Amazon's a prime example. They use data to really understand and anticipate what customers want. They analyze millions of customer interactions to minimize risks, cut costs, add value, and drive innovation.
It's not just about those. You might also like recommendations, though, right? Even though they're pretty good at that.
Right. They're always testing new stuff, new features, new ideas, and they use data to guide their product development so they stay ahead of the curve.
Makes sense.
Think about Apple's iTunes and the App Store, too. They've totally nailed that whole data-driven approach.
So data isn't just about reacting to what's already happened. It's about shaping the future.
You got it. When you use data the right way, it's a powerful tool for innovation and growth.
Speaking of innovation, let's talk about something that seems a little counterintuitive. Top-down innovation. Usually when I think of innovation, it's like a grassroots thing. not something that comes from the top down.
Well, think about the credit card. It wasn't like people were demanding it or anything. It was a bold move by Barclays Bank back in the 60s, driven by their own expertise and vision.
It's hard to imagine life without credit cards now, but back then it was a total game changer.
It really shows how important it is to have a culture where senior management is involved in innovation, and they got to be willing to take risks.
Calculated risk,
Of
right?
course, calculated risks. So sometimes the best ideas come from challenging the status quo and trusting your gut. Is that what Bob Lutz did with the Dodge Viper?
Yeah, fill me.
So back in the 80s, Lutz was president of Chrysler, and he had this vision for a radical sports car. A lot of people told him it was a bad idea, that there was no market for it.
He went with his gut.
He did, and even though people were skeptical, he pushed forward with the Viper. It totally defied expectations. The car was a hit, it revived Chrysler's image, and it proved that sometimes a bold vision can beat traditional market research.
Wow, that's a powerful lesson in intuition and leadership.
It is. Sometimes a leader's conviction can spark real, groundbreaking innovation.
Okay, so we've talked about data-driven innovation, top-down innovation, and trusting your gut. But how do you take an idea and make it go viral? Like, how do you spread it like wildfire? Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point seems to have some answers there.
Oh, definitely. The book's all about how small things can lead to massive changes. Gladwell says there are three types of people who are key to making this happen: connectors, mavens, and salespeople.
Sounds like the dream team for any marketing campaign.
Huh. Pretty much connectors are like social butterflies. They connect to different groups of people. Mavens love sharing their knowledge and expertise. And salespeople, well, they're the masters of persuasion.
So you need all three to really get an idea off the ground.
Yeah, pretty much. And then there's the stickiness factor. An idea needs to be memorable, easy to understand, and compelling if you want it to grab people's attention and spread.
So it's not just about the idea itself, it's about how you communicate it, who's communicating it, and whether it resonates with people on an emotional level.
Exactly. When you understand how social influence works, you can really amplify your ideas.
We've covered a lot of ground today. And it's clear that success in business isn't just about profits. Companies like The Body Shop and the Cooperative Group show that doing good can actually be good for business. What do you think about this whole corporate social responsibility thing, CSR?
Yeah, it's not just a nice bonus anymore, it's essential. Customers want businesses to share their values, and companies are realizing that ethical practices can boost their image, attract talent, and even reduce risks.
It's like a social contract between businesses and the communities they operate in.
That's a good way to put it. Companies are starting to understand that their actions have a ripple effect, and they're being held accountable for how they impact the environment and society.
Speaking of impact, I'm curious about this employee-customer profit chain. It sounds pretty interesting. Can you break it down for me?
Sure, it's a way of showing how happy, engaged employees lead to satisfied customers, and that in turn leads to higher profits. It highlights how everything's connected: employee experience, customer experience, and ultimately business success. It's a model that a lot of companies have had success with, like Series. They use the employee-customer profit chain to show their employees how their everyday work was directly connected to the company's bottom line.
So it's all about giving employees that sense of ownership, right? Like showing them the bigger picture and how their work makes a real difference.
Exactly. When employees feel valued and they see how their work contributes to the company's success, they're more likely to go above and beyond for customers.
Right. Makes total sense.
And that leads to happier customers and more loyalty.
The Ritz-Carlton comes to mind. They're known for having incredible customer service. And I heard they do this whole personalization thing really well.
Oh, yeah, there's the masters of personalization. It goes way beyond just knowing your name. They actually train their employees to notice and record guests' preferences in a system that everyone in the company can access.
Wow. So they can tailor each guest's experience down to the smallest detail.
Yep. Imagine walking into your room and finding your favorite drink already there, or having the staff remember what newspaper you like. It's those little touches that make you feel like a VIP.
It's like they found the perfect blend of technology and that human touch.
They've definitely figured out how to do mass customization the right way. They use data, but they also rely on their staff's intuition and observation skills to create a truly personalized experience.
Speaking of customization, that reminds me of deep dive prototyping. How does that work exactly?
So deep dive prototyping is all about experimenting and testing things out in the real world. It's a process with several steps. You start by putting together a diverse team. Then you got to define the design challenge really clearly. Get insights from experts, brainstorm solutions, build prototypes, test them out in real-world situations, get feedback, make changes, and then finally you produce the solution.
So it's very hands-on and iterative, right? You're constantly learning and refining based on what users tell you.
Exactly. IBO is a great example. They're a top design design firm, and they use deep dive prototyping all the time. They've come up with some seriously innovative products using this method.
It seems like this approach really embraces uncertainty and the need to adapt quickly.
It does. In today's business world, you got to be able to move fast and respond to feedback if you want to create products that people actually want.
Okay, so we've talked about gathering information from customers and experts, but what about harnessing the collective brain power at a team? Have you ever heard of Edward de Bono's six-hat thinking technique?
Oh yeah, six hat thinking. It's a great way to improve decision making and problem solving.
I'm all ears. How does it work?
Basically, it encourages people to look at a problem from 6 different perspectives. Each perspective is represented by a different metaphorical hat.
Okay, interesting. Tell me more.
So you've got the white hat, which is all about objective facts and data. Then there's the red hat, which focuses on emotions, intuition, and a gut feeling.
So it's like getting a full 360-degree view of the situation before you make a decision.
Right. And then you've got the black hat, which is all about caution. It highlights potential risks and weaknesses.
Makes sense.
And then there's the yellow hat for optimism and positive thinking, the green hat for creativity, new ideas, and possibilities. And finally, the blue hat, which is about keeping the discussion organized and on track.
So by switching between these different hats, you can avoid getting stuck in one way of thinking and maybe missing some important insights.
Exactly. It's like having a whole team of experts inside your own head. Each one brings a different perspective to the table.
You know, this reminds me of scenario planning in a way. It's about considering different possibilities instead of just focusing on one outcome.
That's a good point. Both six-hat thinking and scenario planning are super useful tools for dealing with uncertainty and making smart decisions in a world that's constantly changing.
We've covered a lot of ground today. It's clear that success in business isn't just about the numbers. It's about understanding the human element, whether it's your customers, your employees, or the community you're a part of.
It's about building trust, empowering people, and using data to make informed decisions. I'd say the biggest takeaway that the best business ideas, they usually come from simple, basic principles. You know, it's not about chasing the latest fads or making things more complicated than they need to be.
Right.
It's about understanding those core ideas and finding new and clever ways to use them to solve your own specific problems.
So don't reinvent the wheel. Just find a better way to use it.
Exactly. Whether it's building trust with customers or empowering employees or using data to make better decisions, these are the things that make businesses successful, no matter what industry you're in.
So for our listeners out there, we've thrown a lot of ideas at you today. What really stood out? What got you thinking?
Yeah, what really sparked your imagination?
Take these ideas and see how they fit into your world. Think about the challenges you face in your work, your industry, your life. How could you use these ideas to find new solutions?
Don't just listen to this stuff, try it out. Experiment a bit. You might be surprised at what you come up with.
That's a great point. It's all about taking action.
Keep learning, keep questioning things, and never stop exploring. That's how you innovate. That's how you stay ahead in a world that's always changing.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into 100 great business ideas. Hopefully you walked away with some new insights, a fresh perspective, and maybe even a little inspiration. Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep pushing the limits of what's possible.